It was the best of fights, it was the worst of fights. It was the age of artistic merit, it was the age of mediocre slop. I'm not going to continue with this shtick, but you get the point. Disney rebooted the Daredevil series in what I consider to be a grotesque parody of the original. The gripes I have are almost innumerable, from the killing and replacing of beloved characters in the first episode, to the lackluster cinematography, to whatever the hell this is. Suffice to say, there are no shortage of issues with the reboot, but I would make the case that the best way to show the difference between the two is by comparing two analogous scenes. The hallway fight from the Netflix series and the Bullseye Fight from Born Again. It is clear upon watching the scenes that the latter is attempting to harken back to the former. They are both extended fights in which the camera never cuts away, an impressive bit of fight cinematography to be sure, but there is more to a successful fight scene than just camera positioning. A brief disclaimer before we begin the comparison in earnest. Due to copyright restrictions, I will only be using screenshots to illustrate my point. To have the most robust understanding of each scene, it would be ideal to watch them in their entirety. Links in the description. The lead into the Netflix fight begins with Matthew Murdock walking down a hallway, a slow, ominous creep of a shot. The lighting and framing here are beautiful. The yellow light streaming in from the right side of the screen, fading into green tones before becoming inky black shadows that encompass the visage of the protagonist. The posture of Murdock in the shot also speaks volumes. Head slightly cocked as he gleans the locations of his adversaries, fists clenched and eager to burst some deserving skulls. Shit hasn't gone down yet, but it's about to, as we build up to the fight scene proper. Now let's look at how Daredevil entered the fight scene in Born Again. There's no ominous build-up here as the protagonist superheroes in from out of frame and enters the fray. There's nothing unique about this choreography. We've been beaten over the head with it by every Marvel movie that's been released in the past decade plus. I understand that Daredevil is technically a superhero, but not in the same way that Captain America or Iron Man is a superhero. This action movie posturing is a departure from the characterization that was done so well in the Netflix series. Furthermore, what is the color palette in this shot? Brown, mixed with muddy reds, with hints of more vibrant neon? The lighting is so wholly unremarkable, and the combination of these two choices leaves the entire shot feeling uninteresting. But now the Born Again fight has begun in earnest, as Bullseye and Daredevil duke it out in the bar. The muddy color palette has returned, and is supplemented with smoke surrounding the combatants. We have a wide shot of the bar in which the fight is taking place, and patrons are fleeing amidst the chaos. There is so much going on in the shot that it would seem to distract from fight choreography, but that's really not an issue as everything's covered in a thick layer of smoke, obscuring any interesting choreography that could be taking place from the view of the audience. Now let's look at the action and how the Netflix fight began. Instead of a wide shot putting everything on full display, we're given a cramped shot of a hallway, forcing the camera to creep along this cramped corridor as the action takes place. This scene also obscures a significant portion of the action, but instead of covering the entire shot in Spirit Halloween fog, the camera moves down the hallway with a doorway as the only portal by which to view the action that is taking place. Instead of struggling to parse the cacophony of things that happen on screen, the audience is left to imagine what is happening as the camera continues to navigate this narrow hallway. Back at the bar, we arrive just in time to see Daredevil hurl one of his billy clubs and catch it in a manner almost indistinguishable from Captain America before striking another superhero pose. People are fleeing the bar, there is still smoke everywhere, but the camera is sure to capture this Avengers moment. Juxtapose this with the hallway fight. The follow-up to the action that the audience was imagining from their vantage point is a goon being hurled from the room onto a busted door, confirming what we had imagined was taking place in this dingy room. The camera continues to move as Matt Murdock emerges and lays the beat down on the goons. His martial prowess is on display here to be sure, but it is displayed in such a way that shows it is skill rather than something that just comes from being the protagonist. The lights are now shut off at the bar, and the color palette has swapped from muddy brown to muddy blue. Bullseye is now attempting to escape, and Daredevil is in pursuit. The two have now more or less stopped fighting for the moment, and there is a lull in the action as the protagonist gives chase. Meanwhile, there is no lull in the action of the hallway scene. The goons continue to pour forth from both doors, and Murdock continues his righteous crusade as he dishes out and receives a beating. He is tired, and it is showing. But Matthew Murdock is nothing if not tenacious, and continues the brawl despite his waning stamina. The stamina of the two combatants in the bar is also waning, but as I said, Matthew Murdock is nothing if not tenacious as he continues his pursuit of Bullseye. Back is the muted brown color palette as the two make their way up several flights of stairs and onto the roof. Several scuffles between the two take place as they climb higher and higher in the building, but there is a lull in the action that is certainly still present and the tempo of the fight is drastically reduced. There is no such lull in the Netflix fight. The action is almost non-stop for approximately 3 minutes. What brief rests there are serve only to accentuate the violence that will pick back up in a matter of frames. Climax of the Disney fight is now upon us as Bullseye arrives at the roof of the building. It would seem that he's lost his pursuer and is now relatively safe. But this is not the case, as Daredevil essentially flies in from out of frame and lands with an Iron Man pose before leaping off the roof and ending the fight in the most Avengers way possible. The hallway fight also eventually ends, but in a significantly different way. The last of the goons are eventually dispatched, and Matthew Murdock slowly and somberly walks to the door that is his goal. There's no display of superhuman capabilities or preternatural agility. He's just a man skilled in the art of pugilism, no doubt, but at the end of the day, he's just a relatively normal human. No super strength, no fancy robot suit. He's just a man doing what he believes is right with the means at his disposal. I wanted to like Daredevil Born Again, I really did. I binge-watched the entire Netflix series in anticipation of the show. During this, I remembered how well done it was. The lighting and cinematography are almost ubiquitously beautiful, and the writing endeared these characters to us in such an earned and genuine way, but I didn't really see any of that return in the first 2 episodes of the reboot. Instead, what I got was ostensibly an attempt to discard all of that and replace it with all new characters, with lower effort and thought put into lighting and shot composition, and just a copy-paste means of creating a viewing experience. I could go on and on about how disappointed I am in Daredevil Born Again, but I feel like a comparison of these 2 scenes illustrates my point more succinctly than words could possibly do.